Deputy Anthony Lawlor and Deputy Peter Matthews are sharing the next speaking slot. So Deputy Lawlor, you've 10 minutes.
Thanks very much, Lascion Corda. I must say I very much welcome this bill. It's obviously part and parcel of an overall haul of the financial system here in this country. We are obviously following on from a part of an EU framework which comprises of three parts: preparatory and preventative, early supervision intervention, and also resolution tools and powers. And this is what we're dealing with here now, the resolution tools and powers associated. The sad part about this is a piece of legislation that is at least 5 years too late. If this legislation had been in place in 2005, we would not be in the same financial crisis that we are now. I welcome the legislation in the fact that I can see what the Minister is trying to do in parts of it, particularly the fact that when the Governor of the Central Bank will be appointing someone who will be suitably qualified to take on the role of manager of a failed financial institution. But I do have certain worries that, and before that I must compliment the late Deputy Brian Lenihan for his initiative in appointing Professor Houlihan as Governor of the Central Bank. It was the first time in 60 years, over 60 years, when a non-civil servant was appointed as Governor of the Central Bank, and things like that must be welcomed. And the appointment of the head of the civil service should not necessarily be made the Governor of the Central Bank. There are a couple of issues that bother me in this, and the one that I will deal with is the intervention conditions. They're very vague in the legislation that's laid down before us. The Minister has indicated that there will be a certain number of amendments. But the whole problem with the intervention is the fact that the information must flow, and it must flow from the financial institution. We've had problems in the past whereby that type of information did not flow from the financial institution to the central bank. The problem with that was that banks refused to pass on the information that was crucial for decisions to be made further up the lines. If we all remember that when the banks came in November 2008 to the government, they failed to inform the government correctly of their overall debts. It wasn't until 2 years later that we finally got some sort of indication of how serious the problem was. The next step in the chain up from banks is the auditors. The auditors have failed the Irish financial system and failed the Irish people. I must say what has happened over the last 15 years in the consolidation of auditors internationally has been a sad reflection on world economic affairs. 15 years ago, there was at least 8 auditors. Currently, there are now 4 internationally recognized auditors. Each of the 4 were directly or indirectly auditing the 4 main banks. As a matter of fact, the auditors, there was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and the last one, Arthur Anderson, virtually collapsed as a result of the Enron affair. So we're left with the situation where we have only 4 auditors which are worldwide recognized. Over the last 10 years, there has only been 2 changes in bank auditors in the Irish financial system. The auditors that were replaced, Ernst & Young were replaced by Deloitte & Touche from Anglo-Irish, and KPMG replaced PricewaterhouseCoopers after the Rusnik affair, which cost AIB just €690 million. Auditors had a responsibility in that they were to report to the bank and the financial regulator. They had 2 options in which they could have taken if they had done their work properly. First of all, I would consider the soft option, where they could have informed the credit institution and the audit committee and also the financial regulator of the serious problems that was associated with the bank's balance sheet. If there was no response to that, the auditors could have resigned in the midst of doing an audit. That could have led to a serious problems with the bank regarding run on assets and a run on cash. However, during this whole period of the financial crisis, no bank auditor resigned. I must say the third step up the ladder before the information comes to the central bank, the governor of the central bank, is the regulator. And I'm going to read a quote which many celebrity economists would recognise. Moreover, regulatory bodies, like the people who comprise them, have a marked life cycle. In youth, they are vigorous, aggressive, evangelistic, and even intolerant. Later, they mellow, and in old age, after a matter of 10 or 15 years, they become, with some exceptions, either an arm of the industry they are regulating or senile. That was the problem with the regulators here. They became an arm of the industry, or, might one say, senile. This was written in 1954. It was written about the Great Crash in 1929. This is relevant today as it was then. In conclusion, I must say that whereas I welcome most of the parts of the bill, I am interested in the amendments in regard to the intervention. I sincerely hope that the conditions that are put down for when the central bank, governor of the central bank, can intervene in financial institutions that are experiencing difficulties will be made quite clear, and that the reporting of this will also give an indication to the governor of the central bank that he can step in as necessary. Thank you.